Hello everyone, I'm Aric Schneller and I play trombone with the Houston Jazz Orchestra, and I'm also Director of Jazz Studies at Sam Houston State University. Today, I'm going to walk you through Trombone Etude Number 1 based on the tune Confirmation by Charlie Parker. This tune has some interesting lines that need to be negotiated with trombone positions and choices of them, primary or alternates. And it's important to check them so they're in tune, but then make the choice you want. So take, for example, in measure 2, where you have this line. I used second position for the A natural, but because when we go faster, you might consider sixth position and use fifth position sharp 5 for the B flat. So I go in between both of them. I'll show you the first one. That's the slow speed. So your arm has to move very quickly. Now, if I use the alternate position, it looks like this. And if I go faster, and when you come back to second position, that could work a lot easier. Uh, Whatever you do, make a choice and then go with it. But sometimes you might find yourself making a different choice depending on the tempo. Um, Another such position is in measure 4, when you're coming off of the 16th notes G and G flat. Instead of coming back to first position for the F, it's better to go to sixth position because you're coming back to F sharp, like this. It'd be awkward if you went to first. That's a primary position, but if you check the F in first, then you can make that choice. What are some other points like that? Measure 11, same thing. Even though you're coming off of a G on the end of 4 in measure 10, the downbeat of measure 11's F, you might consider using sixth position for that. So, for example, slowly measure 10. Because then you come back to fourth, and then come back to first. So it looks like this. Another position then, right after that, in measure 11, on the A sharp, consider sharp 5 position for that. And also for the D natural on the end of 4, flat 4 position. So the lick looks like this in measure 11. And if you look at the position, it has a nice flow to it. So if you go quickly, it's right there. Let's see, a couple others. Measure 13. Try going to sharp 5 for the B flat instead of coming back to first. Again, you're coming off a C, C flat, 5th position. It's right there. Always check with your primary positions to make sure the intonation's good. Let's get to the turns. These are great. These are embellishments in jazz that all jazz musicians play, but they're particularly fun on trombone. When you first attempt them, use the primary position. So for example, in measure 8, you have this lick on the C7 flat 9. That fits pretty well. You can speed that up even. And your wrist and fingers will start to go more quickly. But something else I'd like you to consider is why don't you try putting an accent on that triplet on beat 3, the D flat, in 2nd position, 3rd position for the E flat, then 5th position for the D flat, and come back to C. So the feel is becomes the pattern. Now you hear the flip of the note and the slur, but watch what happens when I take it up to real tempo. And it has that classic jazz triplet sound. And because I'm tonguing that note, and what we call in trombone fretting means I slur a note, but a note pops out like trumpet when I move the slide. And you also have natural slurs and you have fretting slurs. Well, that's a fretting slur. And and when you're soloing, you can do that anywhere. You can play bebop lines and occasionally throw your slide out to just fret a note and turn it into a triplet. That's a very classic bebop kind of thing to do when you're soloing. So, but it's written here. And again, that happens in measure 24. That same lick, except it's approached differently on the G minor 7 to G flat 7. So that was the primary position, but now I'm going to do the alternate, 2nd position, 3rd, 5th, back to 3rd. Sounds a little bit slur and fretty, but watch what happens when I do it real tempo. See how nice that flows on the slide, and it gets that sound that swings. So those are some alternates. One more alternate that's I think very important again is measure 28. The line after the end of 4 G flat and measure 27 going to F. It's going to be really, you can go to first probably, and I would do that to check the pitch, and you may end up wanting to do it that way. But I ended up putting that in 6th position because it flowed nice. It was a much easier position to go to. Half step away. So here's the lick at 27 moving into 28. So my arm goes there. Here it is if I do the primary position. Which can work. If you're moving quickly, changing the position of the slide will work. It's really up to you. But it's always good to check positions and do one or the other so that you know what you want to choose and what will work. And one way of doing it at the slow tempo may not work when you're going fast. You may have to choose the other. Believe me, I've gone through a couple of times of playing through this and have made different choices. But once I make a choice, I make it. And then for some of those positions, I take my pencil and I write those particular positions in so that I don't forget. Let's look at, I think, something that I did earlier. I played this for you at half speed so that you could hear. I think you should approach it at half speed for reading. You could go slower with the iReal Pro or your metronome. And that way, when you're making mistakes, you're not under pressure. You can hear them. You can correct them. And then move faster from there. So half speed for this is quarter note equals 90. So again, it sounds something like this at the top. that's manageable. And so if you can play the entire etude at half speed and swing it and add the accents, at first you probably just do it with just the notes. But once you get the notes learned and the rhythms, then you can add the accents. Other accents will naturally come out because you're swinging it. And then you can make those choices for your positions. Another point, very important. High G's, there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 high G's in this, and I think 3 high G flats. Those positions, those notes in the particular positions we play them in are the 7th partial position, which is 41 cents flat. We have to, if we're going to adjust anything, those 7th partial flat 7s, right, need to be adjusted. So make sure that your high G's are sharp 2 position and G flats in 3rd position are sharp 3. That's very important. In fact, I would mark that in your music so that you don't forget. So for example, when I get the second measure, okay, because if I play true second, right, and if I play G flats, if I play true third, it's going to be flat. You hear that? So that your brace needs to be in sharp third. I'm sure a lot of you know that, but I think it goes without saying we should always mention that to each other. It's very important. There are other little intonation issues, but that's probably the biggest one that needs to be addressed at all times. Oh, a couple of really cool problem spots, these augmented seconds. Take, for example, in measure 2, the E to D flat. Now, when we're playing it, you may end up having to ghost it because of the speed, but if you practice it slowly, that's a really cool interval, and it needs to be played so that at least if you're hearing it and you end up ghosting it, you're in that position. There's some other interesting ones. How about the, is it the E natural to G flat, that diminished third at the end? It's measure 28. It's a diminished third. It's really E to F sharp, but F sharp enharmonic is G flat, which is the diminished third. So that comes, it's interesting. You really got to lay for that E natural, which is the flat 7, right? It's F flat, but we write it as E natural for the G flat 7. So when we come up to it, do that slowly so you hear that to set yourself up for that lick. Believe me, I've had to practice that quite a bit. And I would recommend going 2nd position, sharp 3rd for the G flat, and then B flat, play that up to true 3rd position and back. So the lick looks something like this. So when you play in tempo, you could go to 1st if that's more convenient for the B flat. Loops. Looping and learning in chunks is really important, because if I equate it to having a meal. When you sit down for a meal, you have a plate, food, knife, and fork. You don't shove the whole plate of food in your face and your mouth, except for when you're a baby maybe, but you eat it in bites. Well, I believe in learning music and playing it like that. So, for example, I'm going to loop that 1st bar down to the E natural in the 2nd bar. Okay, I'll do it again. Now I want to do it in tempo, so I'm going to loop it back and forth. I'll speed it up. Had a little wrong note there, no big deal. But that way, I've learned it. How about trying it with your eyes closed? You learn technique when you do that. there's the old adage, if you can play it 10 times in a row without a mistake, then you've learned it. If you could do it for me at least 5 times, I'd be very happy for you. Because then you're going from think to feel, and you're not thinking about it so much. You can loop it maybe 3 to 5 times with your eyes open, but then loop the lick 3 to 5 times with your eyes closed. And that way you're training and learning the technique. Because you can't always be looking at music to learn technique. You got to get with your horn at some point on that. So you can do that throughout, and then piece licks together over the 2 bars. So for example, I'm going to play the first 2 bars and loop them to the downbeat of beat 3. 3, 4. 3, 4. Now, if you loop it and faster and it gets better and better at whatever tempo you do, then fine. If it gets worse and worse, then slow it down or do it in chunks again. But ultimately, this is how you can learn this whole thing. Imagine if you learned it 1 lick at a time and then went through the whole piece that way and then pieced it together and then did it at half speed. Then hopefully it will sound like the video that I showed you. And frankly, for this piece, that's about the only way I could learn it. So I think that's really, really important. So looping, half speed practice. Make sure to use your alternate positions. Check them with primary to see that they're in tune. Check which one that you like the best in terms of pattern. Those triplets, you can do them in primary as long as when you get up to tempo, you flick your wrist and get that little fret feel, right? That little fretting of popping a note, or use the alternate and it gives you a more flowing pattern. This is a really cool piece. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy perfecting it, and I wish you all the best with your auditions for Allstate.